All right, everybody. In this lesson, we're going to be talking about rhetorical analysis. So let me share my screen here so that you guys can see what we're talking about. So in this, our big goal is to be able to work on our explanatory essays and write appropriately, considering our audience, our message, and our purpose. So that's our big goal here. This is why we're even talking about rhetorical analysis. So what you guys are going to be able to do is identify parts of the rhetorical triangle, determine which rhetorical appeal is being used in a piece of writing, and write your draft of your explanatory essay using each of these rhetorical appeals. You guys are going to be experts by the end of this week. So what is rhetorical analysis? Rhetoric is the way a person uses written or spoken words to persuade. Persuade means to convince somebody. Analysis is close, careful examination of something. So rhetorical analysis is where we look closely at how authors craft their claims, how they say what they say. So in rhetorical analysis, how somebody says something is more important than what they say. So it's still important that you understand what somebody is saying, but when we talk about rhetorical analysis, we're looking at how they say it. What tools do they use? So for example, you might disagree with what an author says, but the point is to understand the methods used to make their claim. So basically, we're looking at the structure of an argument. It's going to make sense here, okay? So it's also important to remember the things that we've already learned this year. So we've talked a lot about tone and mood. So remember, tone is how the author feels and mood is how the reader feels. We've talked about organizational structures. So that's how expository text is organized. Remember, we talked about problems and solutions. We talked about chronological structures. These are all part of this rhetorical analysis. We've talked about imagery, like vivid details, figurative language, and we've talked about diction, which is the author's word choice. You're going to use all of these different concepts when we're talking about rhetorical analysis. So there's three parts that we're going to talk about. These were developed or identified by Aristotle, who we see here. This is a marble statue of Aristotle. I posted a video about him in Google Classroom. He's a really interesting person, so you guys can check out that video that I've posted if you want to learn more about him. He said, "We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit." Smart guy. A lot of our modern thinking comes from him. But today we're going to focus on these parts of the rhetorical triangle. The first part here is ethos. Ethos appeals to the writer's character. Ethos can also be thought of as the role of the writer in the argument and how credible his or her argument is. So when we're talking about ethos, think about the author or the speaker. Pathos appeals to emotions and sympathetic imagination, as well as to beliefs and values. Pathos can also be thought of as the role of the audience in the argument. So pathos, think about the audience. Logos appeals to reason. Logos can also be thought of as the text of the argument, as well as how well the writer has argued his or her point. So logos, think about this subject. What are we talking about? So we have ethos, pathos, and logos. So let's talk more about ethos. I have this meme here of Spider-Man. So Socrates taught Plato, and then Plato taught Aristotle. So we're talking about Aristotle today. It's important to know that he's part of a long tradition of some really famous and important philosophers. So ethos is the credibility of the author, Where do they come from? Who is this person? Why should you trust what this person says? So one of the reasons why we talk about Aristotle and why we listen to Aristotle is because he's credible. So we're going to look for ethos in the structure of the text. Is it organized? Does it make sense? Do we get the feeling that this person understands what they're talking about? We can also look at personal branding. What do we already know about the person? Are they presenting themselves well? Do they look like somebody or sound like somebody who is trustworthy? Look at credentials. Do they have degrees? Do they have experience? Do they have background? Do other people speak up for them? Citations. So if you are referring to other information or studies or other events, are you able to prove what you say? Can you point to where else somebody might have been talking about this information? And then think about, does this person have bias? Bias is kind of an interesting thing because everybody has some kind of bias, right? Bias is just an inclination towards one side or another. But it's important to understand if an author has certain kinds of bias. So for example, if we are watching commercials, we know that these are biased arguments because the company wants you to buy it because they get money from that. So if we're watching a Coke commercial and they say, you know, Coca-Cola is the best tasting cola, we know that they're biased because it's Coca-Cola telling us this. And of course they think that. So these are things that you're going to look for when you're thinking about ethos or the author's credibility. Pathos, here I've got this hey girl meme. Hey girl, I like the way you analyze that ethos, logos, and pathos. Pathos is appeals to our emotions, beliefs, and values. Now, a lot of times when you're looking at information about pathos, they focus on this emotions aspect of it. But pathos is really more than just emotions. It's also beliefs and values. So you can use an appeal to pathos if you appeal to, say, American patriotism. That would be an appeal to pathos, even though it's not strictly an emotion like anger or happiness. You can also think about values like family, like loyalty. Loyalty to family would be an appeal to pathos. So what does the audience think, or what do they believe? So you can use this in stories. So if you're going to tell a story that you think is going to be interesting to your audience, that they're going to listen to, that's going to be pathos. You can use emotional quotes, something that's going to get them invested in thinking. If you guys have ever seen those Sarah McLachlan videos with like the sad abused animals, and it's like in the arms of the angel, that's definitely an appeal to pathos. Okay, they're getting us all upset thinking about these sad puppies, and oh my gosh, where do I send my money so that these puppies aren't locked up in cages anymore? We can also use pathos in vivid language. This gets the reader or the audience interested in starting to think and feel what the author is thinking and feeling. It's also important from your perspective when you're writing your essays to know your audience. Use information, use images that are going to be impactful and relevant to your audience. So if you are not a person who likes animals, then those Sarah McLachlan commercials are probably not going to speak to you as much as somebody like me who has all kinds of animals and keeps adopting dogs from the pound. So know your audience, know what they believe already, or at least have a good idea. And that is pathos. Logos is the next one. Now I have this image for those of you who are Harry Potter fans. If you are having kind of difficulty telling these apart, think of the three main characters from Harry Potter, and this can kind of help you out. So Logos is our Hermione Granger. She's logic and reason. Pathos is Ronald Weasley. He's passion and emotion. And Ethos is Harry Potter. He's morals and goodness. So logos, remember, is facts, logic, and reason of the issue. Logos also help shape the structure of the argument. So that's where we get into those organizational structures that we learned about already. So you want to be able to form your argument in the best way for what you're talking about. So logos is facts, it's statistics, logical order, comparisons, analogies. Whoops. So all of these things are going to go into logos or logic. Does this make sense? So let's do some practice on this. I'm going to read a little paragraph to you, and you guys see if you can figure out which part is logos, which part is pathos, and which part is ethos. So here's our paragraph. 9 out of 10 dentists agree that Toothy brand toothpaste is #1 at fighting cavities. In a laboratory study, our toothpaste killed 99.9% of germs that cause cavities. Enjoy a crisp, cool, minty feeling in your mouth when you brush every day with Toothy toothpaste. So, which sentence uses logos? Remember that logos is logic or facts. A lot of times if we think about facts, we think about numbers. So let's see, I see some numbers in here. 9 out of 10 dentists agree. That looks like maybe it could be a fact. Toothy brand toothpaste is #1. Maybe that's a fact. In a laboratory study, our toothpaste killed 99.9% of germs that cause cavities. Now that looks like it could definitely be a fact. Enjoy crisp, cool, minty feeling in your mouth? Maybe not. So the best answer here is this sentence. In a laboratory study, our toothpaste killed 99.9% of germs that cause cavities. Now this is a use of logos because we could potentially go and look at this study that they are talking about and see if their toothpaste really does kill 99.9% of germs. So this is the best answer for logos. What about pathos? Remember, pathos is appeals to emotion or beliefs, values. Emotion, or I'm sorry, pathos is an appeal to the audience. So the best answer for this one is enjoy a crisp, cool, minty feeling in your mouth when you brush every day with Toothy toothpaste. So in this, we're getting the audience to imagine that nice minty feeling after having brushed your teeth. This also appeals to values because we are saying that most people do want nice, clean, minty, fresh breath and nice, clean teeth and having that good feeling. So this is definitely an appeal to pathos. What about ethos? So remember, ethos is what? Credibility. So ethos is credibility. Why do we trust what this person is saying? So the best answer here, you're right, is this first sentence. 9 out of 10 dentists agree that Toothy brand toothpaste is #1 at fighting cavities. So this shows credibility because they have 10 dentists and they've asked all these people who are experts, who are trusted, who have training. We're just hoping that these dentists are good at their jobs. And 9 of them agree that Toothy toothpaste is the best. So we're pretty familiar with advertising. They use these appeals a lot. And you guys know how I feel about brushing my teeth. I love brushing my teeth. So this is a really good way that we can show and see how ethos, pathos, and logos are used. So now it's your turn. Go to the next assignment in Google Classroom. It's at Quizzes. And take that quiz. See how well you've learned ethos, pathos, and logos. And here's our friend Aristotle giving you some good encouragement. You've got this. You can do this. So go on to the next assignment. See how you do. Now you can only take it once. So if you need to review before you take the quiz, go ahead and do it. I've got the slides in Google Classroom for you. Take your time. You can ask me questions if you want to. and I hope you do really well. Thanks, guys.